All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little Golden State Warrior video. Joe Lacob, once hailed as a genius, self-made billionaire, is he becoming a joke? We will talk about it coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. We're also brought to you by Mancini Sleep World. Mancini's is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. I love my Mancini's bed. Click the link below. Go to sleepworld.com. Find a bed that works for you. Whether shopping online or visiting in-store at any of Mancini's locations, all you got to do is use the code KRUG10, and you'll get 10% off your total order. Again, that's KRUG10 at checkout, KRUEG10, and you'll get 10% off at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors. The more I watch this thing kind of go down further down the road, the more it seems that Joe Lacob is starting to remind me an awful lot of Jerry Jones. The similarities are really, really quite interesting. One, let's talk about Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys. What did he do? He fired Tex Schramm, ran out Tom Landry, cleaned house, brought in his own guy. Super bold, super impactful, and suddenly Jimmy Johnson was running the show. And guess what? Jimmy made the Herschel Walker trade, and the whole thing turned into a dynasty. The Cowboys won the Super Bowl in 1992. They won the Super Bowl again in 1993, the 93 season, January of 94. They've won back-to-back. Niners interrupted their effort for a three-peat by winning in the 94 season. In January of 95, the 49ers beat the Chargers and won the Super Bowl to halt Dallas's, two in a row. But Dallas came back in 1995, and even though the Niners beat them in the regular season at Texas Stadium, the Cowboys would ultimately go back to the Super Bowl, this time against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they would win Super Bowl 30 with Barry Switzer as the head coach. And the Cowboys, at that point, had 3 rings in 4 seasons. And they were still the best team in football, and they were the youngest team in football. And they were on their way to being just an incredible dynasty. Except Jerry Jones decided he was more important, and what he wanted was more important than what was best for the Cowboys. So what did he do? He got rid of Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson was maybe the most dominant football figure at the time. He had won a national championship in college at Miami. He had won 2 Super Bowls with the Cowboys. Jerry's team was so good, or I should say, Jimmy's team was so good that they won a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer. The one thing Jerry Jones claimed was 500 coaches could win with this Cowboy team. He hired Barry Switzer, and he was proven to be correct. So you fast forward to January of 1996, and the Cowboys have won 3 out of 4. And Jerry has run off Jimmy, but guess what? He's got one with Switzer, and he's being toasted as one of the greatest owners in the NFL. And he made a ton of money since that point, built a brand new stadium, an unbelievable state-of-the-art practice facility, and made a lot of really, really good business decisions that helped both the Cowboys mint money and the NFL. And as a businessman, Jerry Jones was a huge, huge success. But as a football man, not so much, because he has not been able to win since. Why? Because he wants to be the guy in charge. He doesn't want Jimmy Johnson. He doesn't want a head coach with all the power. He had Jimmy Johnson. He had Bill Parcells. He doesn't want that. He wants Brian Schottenheimer, because Brian Schottenheimer knows to not challenge him and his son Steven. You turn on the Cowboys in the war room on draft day, who is sitting front and center? Will McClay, their head scout? Nope. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. They are running the team. If you ask Jerry Jones, I'd love to hear Jerry Jones ask the only question that really needs to be asked, which is, if you could win one more Super Bowl but not have any hand in it, as far as you don't get to draft the players, you don't get to make the trades, you don't get to pick the 53-man roster, you don't get to pick the roster, you don't get to do any football stuff. You just get to be the owner. Go to the games, sit in a great seat, pay for everything, but you're not drafting, you're not running the personnel department. Would you rather give up control and win again, or keep control with you and Steven and never win again? And we know what the answer is, because they have never hired that dominant football person. They have never given control of their franchise to that dominant football guy. Jerry's making the calls. Steven's making the calls. They would rather lose with them tinkering and them running things than win with somebody else. Now let's fast forward to Joe Lacob. He's a self-made billionaire. He's a genius. He's the first guy in his family to graduate college. The guy built himself into a billionaire. That deserves a whole lot of respect. And I think we've all given him a whole lot of respect. He bought the team, a team that already had Steph Curry. And then he got boastful. He started talking big. And guess what? Steph Curry backed it up. Because this team that Don Nelson and Larry Riley and Bob Myers and Travis Schlenk and Jerry West put together was able to win 4 rings. And Joe then said goodbye to Jerry, said goodbye to Schlenk, moved out Bob Myers, has now his sons in the front office, and he is probably the most meddlesome owner in the NBA today. Nothing happens without Joe signing off on it. Now he's got a hand-picked general manager, but from the people that I talked to, Mike Dunleavy does a ton of scouting. He's on the road. They probably, we'll see if they can make any moves, but Joe wants to have say in basketball. Did he become a billionaire because he knows basketball? No. He knows business. Why should he run basketball? He's the owner of the team. He can do what he wants, and he is doing what he wants. He's becoming the Jerry Jones of the NBA. I get the picture now that he had Jerry West, the late Jerry West, one of the greatest. He had Bob Myers. He had Don Nelson. He had Larry Riley. He's got Mike Dunleavy. He had Travis Schlenk. He cleared out a lot of those guys. Now, a lot of the big voices in the room are Joe himself and his 2 adult children. And nepotism has gotten into the mix. The exact same thing that has taken down the Cowboys is probably going to wind up taking down the Warriors. And so when you say Jerry Jones, most people go, "Oh God, he can't get out of his own way." He's got 3 Super Bowl rings. He's the owner of a team that was once a dynasty. There aren't a lot of dynasties in the NFL. The Niners of the 80s, the Cowboys of the 90s, the Patriots of the 2000s, and the Chiefs currently. Those are the dynasties. If you want to go past that, you want to go into the 70s, you go to the Steelers. I mean, basically in the last 50 years, you've had the Steeler dynasty, the 49er dynasty, the Patriot dynasty, the Cowboy dynasty, and the Chiefs dynasty. There's been 5 dynasties in our lifetime. And he was the originator of one. So you got to give him respect for having built a dynasty. But if you say Jerry Jones to most people, they say, no, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. It doesn't work. Why? Because it's all about Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, and it's all about them running the show. Does he have the best football people now? No. He's got a football scout that, Will McClay, who makes recommendations, but guess what? When you don't have the real chops, you're going to be like a fan. When you don't really have the credentials for the job, you're going to be like a fan. And what do I mean by that? That means you're going to hit, you're going to miss. You're going to hit. Anybody could hit. Anybody could make one great draft choice. And that's the Cowboys. They drafted Micah Parsons a couple of years ago. They drafted CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago. They hit. stars, incredible picks. But then they also drafted Mozzie Smith, and they miss horribly. So that's what happens when you have non-personnel people doing football personnel. They might hit, and they might miss. And what you have is a hit, a miss, a hit, a miss, and you just can't win that way. You have to hit a few times in a row. So you build up that roster and have a good enough roster to be on top of the football world. Dallas has not been able to develop that level of personnel evaluation consistency, and neither have the Warriors. Nothing against Joe Lacob's kids. I'm sure they've probably made a couple nice picks along the way. But who wanted Alan Smiley-Geach? Who wanted Jacob Evans? Who wanted Jordan Bell? I mean, the Warriors have made some really bad decisions, and they've made some really questionable calls. So, yeah, was Pods a great pick? Yeah. Was TJD a great pick? Yeah. Have the Warriors made some great picks? Yeah, they have. But it's really the same thing. It's like an owner, an outsider, stepped in, had initial success by hiring some of the most credible people and, hiring them, letting them do their job. And then after they did their job, you convinced yourself that you were the reason that you won. Jerry did that in Dallas, and Joe has done that with the Warriors. And now here we are. It's 2025, and, Joe's like, hey, we're not going to take a step back. We're light years ahead. You're not light years ahead, and you will be taking a step back. I mean, and there's no doubt about it. So, it's interesting. Jerry Jones, genius or fool? Well, guess what? He authored a dynasty. There's only been 5 of them in our lifetime. He produced one of them, so he's not an idiot. But he hasn't won in 30 years, so maybe he's not the sharpest guy as well. And now I'm starting to think Joe Lacob is just falling in line with Jerry Jones. He won early with Don Nelson's and Larry Riley's roster, and then he got the arena built, and the Warriors have hung championship banners in the rafters. But now he's got his kids running the show. He just ran out Bob Myers. He is as meddlesome as any owner in the league today, probably the most. Nothing gets done without his approval. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Steph's done or close to done. Draymond the same. And now it's like, is Joe a genius? Well, he was a genius to become a self-made billionaire, and he got off to an awful hot start. But man, the Smiley-Geach era and, hiring your sons and the picks that they've made doesn't look all that good. So until proven otherwise, I see a lot of Jerry Jones in Joe Lacob. A lot of success early. You want undeniable success early, and falling for, it's not just okay to have your kid be, the director of community affairs. No, that's not good enough. You got to make him like your general manager. You got to actually make him in charge of personnel. Being really good at personnel evaluation is a skill, and it's a hard skill to acquire, and very few people have it. And to think that just because you're a self-made billionaire, that all of a sudden you can snap your fingers, anoint your sons front office executives, and that they're just going to hit the ground and become Jerry West immediately? Or somehow Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones were going to become Jimmy Johnson automatically? It's not the way it works. Jerry Jones deserves credit for the championships, and he deserves blame for hiring his son, chasing out Jimmy, and everything that happened since. And Joe Lacob deserves credit for buying the team, the championships, the Chase Center, and he deserves blame for chasing out Bob Myers, chasing out Jerry West, Travis Schlenk, and in introducing his sons to the front office. And it's on him where it goes from here. So I see a lot of Jerry Jones, a lot of success early. Then, hey, you know what? I got to have my sons doing all the key roles. And then, you know what? Suddenly you look up and you don't have the franchise you used to have. And that's what the Warriors, it's going to take a while for the Warriors to get back up because they hit and they miss. Why? Because they've got non-basketball people making basketball decisions. And without a doubt, there are parallels, a lot of parallels between the ownership of Jerry Jones and the Warriors ownership of Joe Lacob. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Mancini's for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.